I'm Olivia, and welcome to Connecting the Dots in Early Childhood Education. Today, we're going to be exploring teaching shapes accurately, focusing on the square. Here we go. Teaching shapes accurately, focusing on the square. So, what language are we going to use when we're describing a square to a young child? There's only a couple things that we want them to really know. The first is that it has to have 4 straight sides, which are all the same length. 4 straight sides that are all the same length. It also has to have 4 right angles. I'll say it again. It has to have 4 right angles. And yes, a right angle is definitely a concept we can teach to a young child. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So a square has to have 4 straight sides that are all the same length, 4 right angles, and of course it can't have any holes. Another optional thing that you can teach children is that a square is also a rhombus and a square is also a rectangle. This might feel a little bit confusing for you, and it will likely feel confusing for young children. So we only want to start to build and make those connections as it feels natural and appropriate to each child. But for your knowledge as an educator, it's important for you to know that a square is also a rhombus and it's also a rectangle. But when teaching properties around the square, we can really just focus on 4 straight sides that are all the same length, 4 right angles, and of course, no holes. If you watched the video that we shared about teaching shapes accurately, talking about the rectangle, we talked about right angles there as well. But I'll mention it again in this video in case you haven't had a chance to watch our rectangle video. Teaching right angles for children is very possible. It needs to be concrete, playful, fun, and full of repetition for them to really begin to grasp the concept. It can be helpful to have children practice making letter L's with their fingers as they go and look for right angles around the classroom. Additionally, I like to have children use Post-it notes to help them identify and find right angles. They can see the way that the angles in this Post-it note, which happen to be a square, if this Post-it note is a square, fit right inside the letter L on my fingers. It's fun to have children during morning meeting or at any other point in the day go on right angle hunts around the classroom. They can use their letter L right angle checkers, or they can use their Post-it note right angle checkers. You'll be amazed over time how quickly children begin to grasp this concept. It's all about keeping it fun, keeping it playful, and keeping it developmentally appropriate. Just as is true with triangles, rectangles, and all other shapes, we want children to see squares in a variety of sizes and a variety of orientations. Now, if you look at the square on the left, it's tilted than what traditionally children will see. And when it's tilted, you may have some children who tell you that it's a diamond or a rhombus when it's this way. But what we want children to understand is that a square is a square no matter how it's tilted. They may start to recognize that it also looks like a rhombus this way, and that may be a great natural opportunity to tell them that a square is a square no matter how it's turned. It's also a rhombus no matter how it's turned. It's kind of like a really special shape. So again, to reiterate, the square is a really special shape. It's a square no matter how we turn it. It's a rhombus no matter how we turn it. And it's a rectangle no matter how we turn it. For young children, it's really important that we teach them geometry in an accurate way so that they can begin to build connections as is appropriate and as makes sense for them. So again, when we're describing the square to a young child, we like to say that a square has 4 right angles and 4 straight sides that are all the same length. And those sides have to be connected. There can be no holes. As feels appropriate for some children who may be ready or maybe asking questions or maybe making their own connections, you want to be able to explain to them when they're ready that a square is a square is a rhombus, and a square is a rectangle. And again, I know this can feel overwhelming at first, especially because this may be the first time that you're really understanding or seeing this information. And that's okay. Many of us learn geometry in a very inaccurate way. But it's time for us to stop the cycle and to really start to dig into this. The more that we as adults understand shapes and geometry, the better we're able to teach them to young children. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that video was helpful in thinking about how you're going to approach teaching shapes accurately to your young learners. Be sure to visit our website and all of our social media. The links and the handles can be found at the slide at the end of the video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.